Q&A session with the Buddha, Part 2, by Venerable Rungruan Papa Saro, Dr. Rungruan Lim Chu Patapa. The continuation from the Part 1 of the scripture of the story of 16 scholars questioning to the Buddha is as follows. The fourth scholar's questions, asking for clarification of the meaning of suffering in life. Question.
I hear you mentioning that the purpose of your teachings is to make an end of suffering in life. Well, it seems like everyone in the world is in suffering. Tell me, what the suffering in life is, and what is the cause of suffering in the world?
Answer.
When we say the world, we mean a place where all beings are living together. We all create an environment for living, in fact we all are connected to each other somehow in one of the way. Therefore, whatsoever action or karma we do, will somehow cause an effect to others no matter directly or indirectly.
The Buddha distinguishes karma into two major categories, the unwholesome and the wholesome. Unwholesome karma is action that is spiritually detrimental to the agent, morally reprehensible, and potentially productive of an unfortunate rebirth and painful results. The criterion for judging an action to be unwholesome is its underlying motives, the roots from which it springs. There are three unwholesome roots: greed, hatred, and delusion. From these there arises a wide variety of secondary defilement states such as anger, hostility, envy, selfishness, arrogance, pride, presumption, and laziness, and from the root defilements and secondary defilements arise defiled actions. All unwholesome karma cause suffering in life. A fool will take unwholesome karma, and directly make suffering to others, and eventually will receive a fruit of unwholesome karma, and eventually indirectly getting suffering in return. Question.
A life is a stream of consciousness like a river flowing into an ocean. We all do some kinds of actions or karma all the times. How we can avoid doing unwholesome karma, so that we can avoid suffering in life? Please tell me how I can cross this ocean of suffering, eliminate all kinds of defilements in the mind.
Answer.
All actions are driven by the mind. Therefore, in order to avoid committing any unwholesome karma, we have to keep the mind to be wholesome at all times. Next, considering on how to make the mind to be wholesome at all times. This can be done by having mindfulness to be aware of what happening in the mind, whether it is wholesome or unwholesome. And if we detect that the mind is unwholesome, then immediately having a mindfulness with careful attention on Dharma to abandon the unwholesome one, and then the mind will become internally steadied, composed, unified, and concentrated. This is the way to perform a Buddhist practice to cross the ocean of suffering.
The fifth scholar's questions, how to perform the Buddhist practice. Question.
Since performing a Buddhist practice will make an end of suffering in life, then please teach me how to perform the Buddhist practice.
Answer.
The main concept of Buddhist practice is to perform an insight observation to see the truths as it really is, and then gaining insight wisdom to cope with the world rightly. The wisdom will be used to eliminate all kinds of defilements. After then the mind will be liberated by wisdom, and making an end of suffering in life.
Question.
Can you please bless me to have this kind of wisdom?
Answer.
No way, I cannot make any supernatural power on you. Do not expect me to perform any sacred by some magic. If you want to have wisdom, then you have to practice and to earn it by yourself. I can only bless you by teaching you on how to perform a Buddhist practice, and the rest you have to earn for it.
Question.
So, can you please teach me how to perform a Buddhist practice?
Answer.
The Buddhist practice starts with performing a mindfulness development, and once having a purified mindfulness, then performing an insight observation on the four mindfulness foundations to gain insight wisdom. And by having a mindfulness to monitor the mind processing all the times, whenever any defilement is arising, then having a mindfulness to bring in wisdom for the cessations of arising defilements.
The sixth scholar's questions, the functions of mindfulness and the role of wisdom in coping with an arising defilements in the mind. Question.
Please explain on the roles of mindfulness and wisdom for the cessation of defilements in a mind.
Answer.
When encountering with the world in receiving an incoming stimulus from the world through 6 sense bases, and then dependent on feeling arises craving and clinging, respectively. If a mind has a mindfulness, the mindfulness will make the mind to be aware of what is happening inside the mind. The mindfulness will detect whether a craving is arising, so does a clinging is arising. By having a mindfulness at all time when having a consciousness, the mind can monitors on whatsoever is happening in the mind processing. Before a wisdom development, the mindfulness with careful attention on proper dharma will be used in abandoning the kind of rough defilements, and the middle defilement of lower fetters. After performing an inside observation in the Buddhist practice, then wisdom is gained developed. By now when a mindfulness detect any arising defilement within the mind, the mindfulness will be incorporated with wisdom to abandon the arising defilement, especially the finest defilements at craving, clinging, and ignorance of the process of dependent origination.
Question.
Please tell me, what is a condition when there is no any defilement left in the mind?
Answer.
First let us investigate what is happening when a consciousness arises. A consciousness will fetch signals transmitted within the central nervous system as an object of consciousness. And if a life does not know the truths of nature, then the mind will wrongly respond with unwholesomeness, causing a contaminant of defilement within the mind, and then leading the mind processing into a wrong pathway, and the defilement will be aggravated, from the finest defilement to the middle defilement and to the rough defilement, respectively, until finally bursting into unwholesome action of kama, that bring in suffering in life. This is reason why saying that any kind of defilement will lead to suffering in life. Let us consider a situation if we can abandon any arising defilement within the mind processing. Now the mind processing will function rightly, and the mind become internally steadied, composed, unified, and concentrated all the ways in the mind processing. The mind will be liberated and attaining a special state of mind called nirvana. Well, the nirvana is a special state and condition that is beyond any words and descriptions.
The seventh scholar's questions, if there is an alternative way to reach a state of nirvana. Question.
The Brahmins also claim that they can reach a final achievement of nirvana by performing the Brahman practice of the mantra meditation and the highest level of absorption. Is it possible?
Answer.
Definitely no way, that is not correct. The Brahman practice can only suppress the arising problem by meditation power, like putting a stone on the grass. But when the stone of meditation power is lifted, the grass of defilement will grow again. In Buddhist practice, by having a mindfulness performing an inside observation to gain wisdom, then having mindfulness incorporated with wisdom for the cessations of all kinds of defilements. In Buddhism, the mind will be liberated by wisdom.
Question.
How about praying or sacrificing to gods? Can this be a way to reach a final achievement of nirvana?
Answer.
Absolutely not. Praying or performing a sacrifice to gods has nothing to do with the wisdom development. It is not a way to reach a final achievement of nirvana.
Question.
If so, then what we should do?
Answer.
Well, performing a Buddhist practice to gain wisdom, and then having a mindfulness incorporated with wisdom for the cessations of craving, clinging, and ignorance within the process of dependent origination is the only way to reach a final achievement of nirvana.
The eighth scholar's questions, the role of mindfulness in abandoning an unwholesome mind. Question.
A mindfulness seems to be very important in mind development. Tell me how specifically the role of mindfulness in abandoning an unwholesome mind?
Answer.
A mindfulness is a very important quality of mind in performing a Buddhist practice. We first use a mindfulness to monitor the condition of mind whether it is wholesome or unwholesome. Then secondly, if the mind is unwholesome, we use a mindfulness with careful attention to abandon any arising unwholesome one. Thirdly, We use a mindfulness in performing an insight observation to gain wisdom, and once the wisdom is developed, then we apply a mindfulness incorporated with wisdom for the cessation of craving in a mind processing.